My favorite game from round 9 of the Lindores Abbey Rapid Challenge was the game between Young Christoph Duda and Liren. Young Christoph Duda opens with one c4, e5, and the King's English, as they say, bit of like reverse dragon variation of the Sicilian defense, but it is with white pieces. And you see bishop b4 move, bishop g2, castles, knight here, knight g5, bishop takes, pawn takes, and rook defends the pawn. And we have seen this variation by Liren himself. He plays this variation quite well. Then Duda has played this opening quite a lot of times in the tournament. So he's experimenting, or basically he is very well versed in this opening. f3 takes, and then knight retreats. Now d5, pawn takes, queen takes, and now castle. So both sides have developed. The position isn't bad for either of the sides, and the position is around about even. But the problem here for white is this e2 pawn is potential weakness, and it's very difficult to develop this e pawn. You can try to play e3 and then d4, but then this bishop gets locked here, and once black gets c5 b6 break, even though the queen is standing here on this nasty diagonal, you might see black play bishop b7 and closing this potential threat, but that's for the later moment. And if you try to play e3 and then d4, then this e3 pawn would be loose and rook is controlling that, so that will hamper the development of this queen's bishop for white. Knight c6, knight d4, queen h5, and he should have simply exchanged the knights. Let's say knight takes, b takes, and if bishop takes, then knight g4 wins. There would be absolutely no defense to queen h2, so you have to avoid it. So e3 opening the diagonal and bishop g4, that could have been a playable position. However, after queen h5, he plays e3 first, and what this does, it allows bishop g4 to be played. And here the simple move would have been to play queen b3 here to attack this pawn, but he plays queen c2, and after bishop h3 he goes queen d1, and it was quite baffling, this shuffling of queens to c2 d1. It basically meant that Duda was very confused in this position and he didn't trust his instincts, and there's obviously clear threat of taking this bishop, and king takes, so that's why this tension between the queens, that was quite important. Queen takes d1, rook takes d1, bishop takes, king takes, and already black has a raging initiative here, because after knight e5 suddenly this capture disappears, and the potential weakness that could have been here also goes with this move. Rook b1, b6, knight f3, knight d3, so this pawn stays here and this bishop is also attacked. King f1, rook a d8, just solidifying the piece here, and Liren is in the hot seat at the moment. He's totally dominating Duda here, and Duda also didn't help himself either, because playing such an opening in this way and not pushing this d4 and this pawns, and also this queen c2 and queen d1 thing was totally dubious in my opinion, and he somewhat miscalculated and misread what black was up to. King e2 and now c5 just totally shuts this bishop, this poor bishop. a4, he tries to break the queen side. Knight e4, putting more pressure on this bishop, and so that there might be some tactics that might come on this d2 square, although knight also defends, but vicious tactics are on the cards. a5 tried to breaking this pawn structure to initiate the capture, and he could have simply played g5 and g4 in this position regardless of this, but rook e6 is also winning anywhere, and if he had gone for this, things, there would have been some respite, but the position is already gone. Rook b3 just gives black a lot of time. g5 kicking that knight away. g4 trying to stop that knight, that pawn to kick the knight away, and now h5 to do the same. A takes b, a takes b, bishop a3, and after h takes g4, Duda resigns the game. Liren absolutely dominated this game. If knight g1, then rook h6, and this h pawn goes, and this white king is totally exposed, or I should say busted, because it cannot come away. The king can't take because the rook defends, and rook h6 is on the cards. What a poor bishop this is. What the hell this rook is doing here. What a tremendous job these two knights did, this rook did in tandem. And already there is a tempo on this knight, so knight has to move here, and then rook h6, picking up this pawn and creating massive threats towards white king. So Duda resigned. Now we jump to round 10, and there were two games that fascinated me, and those two games had some different ends. One had a fabulous end, which I'll be looking and in throughout and from start to finish, and the another one that I want to give a glimpse of the position, and this was the game between Daniel Dubov and Magnus Carlsen. Magnus was white, Magnus Carlsen and Daniel Dubov. You can see this position. In this position, black has two bishops and white has two knights, or I should say knight and a bishop against the two bishops, so it is clear advantage for black. Knight has to keep defending this. Might see some exchanges of one of the knights for this knight, and that endgame would be totally dominated by black, and Dubov does that, playing knight c3, and the intention, simple intention, is to exchange the knights and activate this bishop, attacking this knight, and when that goes, then this pawn will drop, and then this one, three connected pass pawns, black will drive away the game. However, Carlsen does it quick. He plays bishop f2, and after knight takes e2, white is a piece down, Magnus resigns. What a terrible blunder to make. As white, Carlsen lost this game as white, so he was in a huge amount of pressure. And now my favorite game from round 10 was the game between Alexander Grischuk and Alireza Firouzja. Grischuk was white and Alireza was black, and I loved this game. The way one player dominated, I won't give away the name, who dominated who, but the way one player dominated the game was worth watching this game 1,000 times. Grischuk with white pieces, knight f3, knight f6, c4, g6, knight c3, bishop g7, so king's Indian defense here, and this king's knight opening, the Reti opening, has transposed into the king's Indian defense of black. Everyone plays it, probably Kasparov and Fischer played it with tremendous effect, had some dominating victories with this system, and the c5 d5 move tried to close the structure, And here the basic intention is to play b4, which he does. You can remember the game Anand won against Temur Radyabov in freedhs.com Online Nations Cup, in which the Indian called this move dubious, but actually this move was very effective because you have to stop a5 and start pushing your queenside pawns. That's the thing, because after a5, which was happened in the game, b takes a5, rook takes a5, and suddenly white has tremendous initiative on the queen side. a4 by Grischuk, knight e8, rook b1, f5. So black is trying to initiate the break in the center by playing f5. Knight g5 by Grischuk, b6. Just try to fianchetto this bishop or to free this bishop to move in order to keep this pawn defended like this. Bishop d2, placing this into a threat, pin threat, then rook a, bishop f3, and rook a6. So I didn't like rook going back here and then coming here, but you should have played knight f6 in this position. Oh sorry, knight f6 in this position. That's knight c6, pardon me. And that would have been better, because with this knight here sitting, it controls this h7 square, and although there is no significant threat at the moment, this can be a potential threat in if the game goes into the end game or something nasty happens on the king side and this queen gets really active. That could have been the case, could be the case. Bishop e2, rook a8. Again, this rook shuffle, I don't like this. If you don't like, if white plays bishop f3, then he's inviting the draw by perpetual, or I should say move repetition. So he could go a7, rook a7, and I don't see any harm in playing rook a7. Probably knight b5, which would be worrying factor here if you play rook here. So he's losing tempo on this rook move, Alireza. Bishop f3, and now he doesn't move the rook. Still he can play knight f6. Alireza plays bishop f6. He's trying to trade this knight off. Knight e6, bishop takes, d takes, and f4, so closing the king side for this dark square bishop. Good move. You have to close the positions in king's Indian defense. Black always tries to close this position, and now the black's intention is to play knight g7 or queen c8 to wrap this pawn off. Excuse me. Knight d5, knight g7 as we see, and now a5, and a5 was a misstep. Possibly he could have tried to play bishop g4, and I don't see how black could have been able to take the pawn. Yes, queen c8 might come, but that would be really nasty to put your queen into the spin. Things could have been a little bit shaky. Nevertheless, a5, b takes, bishop g4 played, so this is all level. h5, bishop h3, and g5. f3 from Grischuk, a4, so he's trying to push his lone pawn that is sitting here, and in a good time he would like to run this pawn down the board, and after rook b7 he does run the pawn down. Bishop c3, he runs the pawn down again, and if you look at the white structure, black has 6 pawns against white's 6 pawns, and this is the extra pawn. So what Alireza is trying to do is to create some weaknesses on the queen side by using this extra pawn and pushing it as far as he can. And I like this step But the step I don't like is the step that Grischuk take by playing queen c2, because you are pressurizing on c7, and I don't see a threat here of promotion because the bishop is there to recapture, and you are just wasting time here. You should have simply taken the pawn on c7, but I can understand faster time controls, you have to be really quick on the calculations. Maybe that's the benefit of the doubt that I can give. And now g4, and this bishop looks a poor piece here, just begging for a square, begging to have a square and have some play. F takes g4, knight takes e6, and now the over ambitious blunder by Grischuk. Rook a1. I simply couldn't understand why did he play this. He could have taken this and the game goes on, and then pawn takes on h5. This king looks a little bit exposed, not little bit but too much exposed, and he could have initiated the attack on this king, and he didn't have to worry about this pawn because, as I said, the bishop covers it and the rook had covered that. So what was the point? Really, I think after this white is totally gone, because after knight takes d5, c takes d5, knight g5, rook takes a2, and really white has already thrown in the towel. Queen takes, and now queen c8 attacking the rook. If queen a7, then bishop d8 defends the c pawn, and rook b8 doesn't change anything. Queen d7, just keeping an eye on this pawn. This takes, then knight check, and everything falls apart, and we see that in the game. Go to the bitter end, bishop e1. I don't know what purpose it is serving. It was attacked, but on e1, what is it doing? He could have played king h7 here, but it still doesn't change any bit. King h8, threat is rook g8, absolutely no defense. Queen f2, rook g8 check, king h1, and after queen d3, Grischuk resigns the game. Alireza won a beautiful game here. The queen has to give itself up in order to defend the pawn on e4. Simple threat is to play queen e4, queen takes e4 check, and then you pick the queen. Now, what was the point of, let's go 2-3 moves back. After bishop e1, he plays king h8, and analysis computer suggests that he should have played king h7. What would have been the difference? The difference would have been he plays king h8. After queen f2, he plays rook g8 check, king h1. After queen d3, he could have played queen g2, and after rook takes g2, rook takes d8 check, would have come with check and lost a little bit of time. Black is winning anyway, but there are some little bit nuances that white should always be aware of. To just wrap it up quick, just go home, just wrap the game off and go home early. And this rook takes d8 wouldn't have come with check if the king had been on h7. So that's why little things, every square matters, every little square matters. I would be bringing the my favorite game from the last round as well. This was also very fascinating. I hope you like this video. I hope you like my favorite games from round 9 and round 10 from Lindores Abbey Rapid Challenge 2020. And stay safe, stay with me. Cheers, bye.